Hello, LRNR. This is Carrie, your professor, and this is our lecture for week 7. So this lecture has already been done and it met in real time on Wednesday at 3 p.m. But I decided to re-record just to hit on some of the key points that I don't feel that I elaborated on enough. So I will post the other lecture that you do not need to watch, but you do need to watch this one. So this week we focused in on banned books. So Banned Books Week is sponsored by the American Library Association, and it highlights the phenomenon of challenged books. Now I tie this in throughout the lecture this week into freedom of speech, into the Library Bill of Rights, into the First Amendment to the United States Bill of Rights. And I drill down into how those are how they tie into our freedom of expression, they tie into our freedom of speech, and even in some ways, right to assembly. The Bill of Rights, the Library Bill of Rights, and let me switch over to our module here. I highlight this because these 5 laws of library science stated by the scholar Ranganathan in 1931 really are some guiding principles that provide a lot of purpose and direction for how information gets chosen. So the people that choose these items for the library, if the library is owned by the public, it's a really heavy duty to choose the right thing for, it's not everybody is going to like what you choose. It's very personal. Finding information that you like is very personal. So the 5 laws are: books are for use, every reader their book, and every book their reader. Save the time of the reader, and the library is a growing organism. This one right here is sort of my go-to, and this is how I like to choose books. It's not necessarily that I'm choosing the book that will be read by everybody. No, there's not very much material out there that gets seen or read by everybody. So every material has a particular use, and it needs to be accessible as well. I mean, things aren't any good if they're kept in glass cases. People need to be able to access them and use them. So continuing forward, I wanted to talk just a little bit more about this Humphrner, Lemaster, and Register article called Banned Books. It's a quick read, it's 2 pages, but they bring up some really excellent examples like Lolita, some examples of why and how it was banned. And I thought that this article was important because it showed kind of the flip side of this. So for example, reading Nabokov, reading Lolita, it's a pretty dense text, and it's rather controversial. There is a man that he's a middle-aged man, and he basically abducts a 12-year-old. And however, because he's such a masterful writer, it's masterful, and because of its artfulness, it's been protected, and it's sort of on that boundary of, should a book be left on the shelves because it's art? So this idea about art and privilege, or art and censorship, all is wrapped into one. So that was one point that I really liked about this article. I wanted to spend some time talking about public forums and that how that relates to a college campus. So when we think of a public forum. A public forum can be your traditional um, uh, open public forum. You can have your limited public forums, and then you can also have your private forums. So, for example, a library, a classroom, a college campus, these are all limited public forums. So, I could petition to come onto campus and either hang a flyer or give a protest or um, maybe another, or like hand out literature on campus, but I would have to go through a series of administrative checklist. I would have to pass through a set of approvals to get permission to do that. This works for the library as well. However, there is public oversight. So if the public taxes pay for library material, public taxes pay for a college campus, usually there are neighborhoods, public oversight committees that, or a board of trustees of community members that weigh in on the governance of a college campus. And this is important because it provides that public oversight. So when we talk about the library as a very as a political public forum, that's what we're really saying, is that it's the public and these oversights that allow or also sometimes censor certain language. And the last part that I really want to drive home about um, censorship or suppression or challenged materials is the right to privacy or issues of privacy. And really, this is a enormous topic that our society is facing. I don't think that we have the bandwidth in this class to tackle that issue, but we can look at it through the lens of the library. So, for instance, within the Library Bill of Rights that all librarians are committed to, we state very clearly that we do not share patron information. So when you check out a book or you look on a computer for certain browsing or keywords, that will never be shared with anybody outside of the library. In fact, we keep very limited records um, of those searches. So we do that a couple different ways. We will deep freeze the computers at night, so all browsing history is deleted. Um, um, we set up other confidentiality blankets, and those provide a buffer. So we also use distributed networks. So what a distributed network is when they they work interdependently. So there are parts of the network that communicate, but the parts that are about the personal information does not get distributed, does not get intershared. So again, these are ways that the library protects user confidentiality and patron information. So uh, I think this is an extremely important point. The American Library Association has fought this all the way up to the Supreme Court, and some aspects we've lost, some aspects we've won, but we will always protect our patron information by just, we take particular steps so that it's just not there. It's not available. So we really take that First Amendment protects against government action that unduly restricts the fundamental freedoms of speech and right to assembly. Very, it's just one of our principles. So I do tie in some other examples like medical and healthcare. And I can't think of beside our own minds, our very brain interworkings, I can't think of anything more private than my health, than my body, and how health information confidentiality is so important. So that was another example that I tied in here. So moving on from Banned Books Week, although it is sort of a heavy heart to move on because this would have been something that in class I would have had a really lovely conversation with you. So I hope that you contribute to the discussion board and to your peers and share some of your experiences. It doesn't have to just be banned books. It can be movies. You can talk about maybe times when you said or wrote something or were encouraged not to see something because of some sort of a negative expression. So, however, we do need to move on. So in our module 3, we start to move into this gathering and evaluating, which, well, we haven't really done too much gathering yet. And I'm going to talk about what I mean by gathering. But we have done a little bit of evaluating, and we've applied criteria for our evaluation. We applied that even last week's module when we were looking at the 5 criteria for a good research question. So we will be revisiting that a little later. However, gathering information, so we talk about how data and information are organized and how libraries provide access to those resources. So we take a little bit deeper look behind the curtain. Use of abstracts and bibliographic records. So I'll explain a little bit further what those are. And then use of descriptive terminology. And descriptive terminology is sort of the focus of this lecture today. And it's going to be metadata. So let's take a look at this word. Oops, excuse me. So metadata is descriptive terminology that enables a seeker to do more intelligent searches of databases beyond the use of keywords. Metadata can be considered a tag, like a hashtag on Instagram. It's also data about data. Okay, so oftentimes it's coded, it's encoded, meaning that it's not seen on the interface, so it's usually hidden. And those are descriptors. So the descriptors might be an example from Bad Key on page 95 is when we're looking for a person and we have a field and the field's name is first name. And then the second field is last name. And then street, and you type in the date. So all of that is, those fields are examples of metadata. So they provide identifiers that distinguish what you want to look up. And a database record, so our assignment this week, we have a 15-point assignment where you go into the EBSCO Academic Search Complete and you locate an article using your topic. And we're not really getting very concerned yet about the contents of the article. of course, I mean, while you're there, you might as well get something that you like. So